It's similar to something that I've been doing for many years on Facebook from a place I call Studio C. It's actually my home office. And what I like about doing the weather in this particular format is there's really very little time constraint. I get to go into great detail, something that I just really don't get the time, that we don't get the time to do here in our TV shows, because we're, do a minute and a half, 2 minutes, and sometimes I wish we had a lot more time to really delve into details. So hopefully here in the next 30 minutes or so, I'll give you plenty of information about what is likely to be happening specifically tomorrow into tomorrow night and Wednesday, because that is the time of greatest concern. But naturally, before we get into that, I want to talk about how nice it is now and how nice it was earlier today. These are the current temperatures across the area. Current temperatures. You'd have been happy with this for highs. We've got 64 right now at O'Hare. Midway, about the same with 63. Even as far north as Woodstock at 63 degrees. Chicago Heights, Valparaiso, not quite as warm. You're only 58 degrees. Keep in mind, the normal high for the day this time of year is 44 degrees. Look where we are right now. 64 at LaSalle, Peru, and Morris. Really a remarkably mild evening. So what were the highs today? Record crushing. The old record for today was set only 5 years ago, and it was 69 degrees. And in the almanac pages, where all of the records of weather are kept, most of the records this time of year for a high are in the upper 70s to almost around 80 degrees. So this was kind of some low-hanging fruit, as I like to refer to it, a 69-degree record. And the fact that we only set it 5 years ago tells you that it was even lower before. But this was, we clobbered it, just like we did a couple weeks ago. Remember that day that we had the mid-60s, I want to say it was, and the old record was 59. So today we beat the record by 4 degrees. O'Hare, Midway, the Lakefront, Waukegan, look at the 73, looks like the popular number out there. Morris, Coal City with a 73. And unlike a lot of times this year, where we get very warm temperatures away from the lake, today we were able to drive that warmth, thank you southwest winds, all the way to the beaches. Not that they're open, but for anybody that was walking around along the lakefront or downtown, it was just as warm there as it was at inland locations. We could get days. The water temperature, by the way, is in the low to mid 30s right now. So if you get a wind going the other way, hint for tomorrow, makes a big difference in the temperatures. But today that was not the case. Record highs, and it was just absolutely lovely. And the fact that we were able to get sunshine, too, that made it extra nice. Now, let's look at the winds. They're still pretty much straight out of the south, maybe a little bit of a southwesterly kink to that wind. The strongest gust, just eyeballing this, is at Midway with a 23-mile-an-hour gust. Now, about the same at O'Hare. These winds will die down a little bit tonight, and what may happen as we import slightly more moist air into Chicagoland, if the winds die down enough, there can be some patchy fog. I'm not expecting widespread fog like we had, for 3 days in a row last week where it was just soupy pretty much the whole time. That's not the case here, but I wouldn't be surprised to see some visibilities 2 miles or so overnight into early tomorrow morning once these winds die down. Gary still with a 21-mile-an-hour wind. And the other thing, the wind direction coming out of the south. Tomorrow, we're going to have a front in here, and that is going to make a huge difference in the temperatures, because behind that front, temperatures are going to be cooler. Let's talk temps, because this is going to play into what can happen, what might happen storm-wise tomorrow. Here we are tonight in about an hour, and our computer model, our Weather Authority Futurecast, is showing readings low 60s, a few upper 50s here and there. Let's run you through the clock. Tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock, and you're looking at 45 degrees in Waukegan, and it's 60 in Kankakee, 58 in Joliet, Chicago's Lakefront 49, still low 50s at O'Hare and Midway. Woodstock has dropped to 46 degrees. By 11 o'clock, it's warming up kind of south of I-80. Look at those numbers: LaSalle, Morris, Kankakee, Rensselaer, well into the 60s, while 40s are becoming a little bit more widespread. Now, here's the thing. I'm looking at this at 2 o'clock. Our model's got 57 at O'Hare, but only 51 at Midway. That doesn't make sense to me. So I'm in disagreement with what the model is saying there. I think it's going to be more like 47 at O'Hare at 2 o'clock. And look at that 71 at Rensselaer, 67 at LaSalle, Peru. Temperatures, a wide disparity across the area because the winds will be shifting and we're bringing in lake-cooled air. And again, at 5 o'clock, our model says 52 at O'Hare. No way, not going to be the case. It will be in the 40s there. Maybe 60-ish at Joliet, but there you see 70s showing up, kind of Kankakee River Valley and points south. If you're in Bourbonnais, if you're in Essex, maybe if you're in Minooka, certainly if you're in Streeter, could be 70 degrees. In fact, if you just look at the colors there, kind of anything yellow and south of that, that's pretty much where that front is going to be draped tomorrow, separating the lake-cooled air from the not lake-cooled air. Now, at 8 o'clock, this is when thunderstorms may be getting going with gangbusters. You're looking at, low to mid 40, 41 at Waukegan, 46 at Midway, and we're still advertising some 60s far south. The warmer the temperatures are, the greater the instability is in the atmosphere. Instability more or less means, does the air want to go up kind of dynamically, explosively, leading to thunderstorms? If you have lift and saturation, you get precipitation. And if the lift is enough and other factors are in place, you can get some thunderstorms. So the greatest instability is going to be south all day tomorrow. That said, it does not mean that there will be no instability, no chance of thunderstorms, even in those areas where temperatures are in the 40s. But it may impact the intensity of said storms. Now look here at 7 o'clock on Wednesday morning, when it's still likely to be raining, and I'll show you the radar here in a little bit. 42 at O'Hare in the lakefront, 39 Waukegan, about the same at Woodstock. We've dropped into the 50s in the Kankakee River Valley. Pretty much all of you in northwest Indiana, mid to upper 40s. Doesn't warm up much in the afternoon. There's noon on Wednesday, still some rain. And then it's low 40s. I mean, keep in mind, this is a 30-degree drop in most places here from what we had today. I realize it didn't happen like that, but it's still a shock to the system. It's March in Chicago. Wednesday night, upper 30s to around 40 degrees. And then Wednesday night, it's getting chilly out there, but really that's more or less a return to normal temperatures for the middle part of March. So this is something I want to talk about. I'm sure you've seen, and you will be seeing, maps here. I'll show you something here first before I get into that. You're going to see maps that look like this, okay? All kinds of pretty colors on there. And they mean slight risk, enhanced risk, marginal risk. What does all that really mean? Who's doing that forecasting? This is done by the Storm Prediction Center. They are located in Norman, Oklahoma, outside of Oklahoma City. These are meteorologists whose primary responsibility is to determine where, multiple days in advance, severe weather can happen. That could be a snowstorm. It could be severe thunderstorms. So they are, first and foremost, they're charged with putting out these outlooks days in advance. Obviously, the closer you are to an event, the greater the confidence is. They also are the official body that issues watches. A tornado watch, a severe thunderstorm watch, comes from the Storm Prediction Center. When you see a map like this, though, all right, there's orange, enhanced risk. Do you really know what that means? I'm going to try and show you here what that means. And even still, there's a lot of wiggle room here. So let's take a look at this. This is what all of these various colors and denotations mean. So let's look at a marginal risk. It's a level 1 out of 5. Isolated, severe thunderstorms, possible, limited in duration and or coverage and or intensity. What's a severe thunderstorm? Severe thunderstorm has to have one or both of the following: 58 mile per hour winds or greater, and that could be a tornado, and or 1 inch diameter hail or larger. That is a severe thunderstorm. Marginal, isolated. So the implication there is maybe one here, one there. The tornado that hit fatal reactions or consequences there in Union City, Michigan, occurred in a marginal risk area in southern Michigan. So it doesn't mean that you can't have a destructive tornado in a marginal risk area. It simply means limited in coverage and or intensity. Now let's go to slight risk. That's the yellow. And that covers portions of Chicagoland. Scattered severe storms are possible. Scattered. All right, that implies more of them than isolated, right? Short-lived and or not widespread isolated intense storms possible. Excuse me. All right, so that's an upgrade. Still not maybe telling you everything you need to know, but it's at least some clarification. Enhanced risk. Numerous severe storms still possible. Still possible. More persistent and or widespread, and a few intense compared with slight risk where it was isolated intense. Do you know what intense, but what does intense really mean? What does that mean to you? Okay, well, there is, some wiggle room there. To me, it would mean a stronger tornado, maybe a 70-mile-an-hour wind, a larger hailstone. Moderate risk and high risk are where you have widespread severe storms likely or expected. These are long-lived, widespread, and intense, and when you get a high-risk area, particularly intense. So that's what we're talking about here. Then all of these areas, so let's call up the map here. All of these areas are referring to a severe weather occurrence within 25 miles of any point that you touch in those areas. So there's the national map, and you can see big portion of the country, all the way from the Rio Grande Valley to the southern Great Lakes, with some risk of severe weather. And here's the breakdown in Chicagoland. You've got an orange enhanced risk area, city, kind of I-88 and points south. North of that, it's a slight risk, but a big portion of Chicagoland has that enhanced risk area. To me, your takeaway from this is it's probably going to, almost certainly, going to be a watch covering at least that orange area tomorrow, and very likely covering all of Chicagoland. So despite the temperature variance that I just showed you, we're still talking about area-wide weather that can be threatening and damaging. It's not a guarantee, but that can be threatening and damaging, which is why you need to be weather ready. Now we're going to take a quick break, and in a minute I'm going to show you the future radar. What time are the storms going to hit? Where are they favored to hit? And we'll look ahead to the rest of the forecast when we come back. Welcome back to the Weather Show. I'm meteorologist Mike Kaplan. We're talking about tomorrow's risk of severe thunderstorms. It was so nice today. It's just a shame that we have to deal with it. But, you know, it's March in Chicagoland. All right, we were talking about severe thunderstorms and where they are likely tomorrow, where they're a little bit less likely, but still kind of likely. There's the national map. Now, one of the other things that the Storm Prediction Center folks do is they break it down in where are tornadoes more likely? Where is large hail more likely? Where are damaging straight line winds more likely? So I want to break this down. Let's start, first of all, with hail. And here's the hail outlook for tomorrow. I'm actually going to zoom in here on the Chicago area, okay? This is a really high likelihood of hail coming down in the area. That's a 30% chance of large hail occurring in that red shaded area. In yellow, it's a 15% chance of at least 1-inch diameter hail coming down. Hail is a very real risk anywhere in Chicagoland tomorrow, but the highest risk is in that red shaded area. Significant hail. That's where we're looking at the possibility of maybe some golf ball size hail occurring. And anywhere in Chicagoland, that's about a 10% chance is actually what that's going to translate to. So you've got risk of hail tomorrow. How about damaging straight line winds? Okay, once again, all of Chicagoland has the risk of damaging straight line winds, and that's pretty much a 15% chance of that. So actually, the hail probability is larger than the severe straight line wind risk tomorrow, which is something that's not often the case. One of the reasons why this may happen is because some of these storms are going to be what we call elevated. The bottom of the clouds will be a little bit higher than normal, and almost always that ends up resulting in a higher chance of some larger hail coming down. All right, so there is your large hail threat for tomorrow. And of course, now you want to look at the tornado map. And here it is. There's the tornado risk area. And I'll put some numbers on here for you just for a frame of reference. In green, 2% tornado risk, brown, 5%, yellow, 10%. Again, what does that mean? That means that in that yellow area, if I touch anywhere on that map, there's a 1 in 10 or 10% chance of a tornado, any kind of tornado, occurring within 25 miles of wherever I touch. Why not just say there's a 10% chance of a tornado anywhere in that area? I have no idea why the Storm Prediction Center makes that nomenclature within 25 miles. It's just a 10% chance of a tornado. 5% chance in brown, that includes the city, and a 2% chance of a tornado, kind of a little narrow corridor over some of the northern suburbs. But the point is, there's a chance of tornadoes anywhere in Chicagoland. Now you're saying, hey, 2%, that's 1 in 50. Well, okay, it's a small chance. But on a normal day, for example, like today, chance of a tornado, zero. So you go from 0 to 2 or 5%, suddenly that's something that's of note. So we have a risk of hail, there is a risk of tornadoes, and there's a risk of damaging straight line winds. So let's go to our futurecast model, and let's look at the timing of when thunderstorms are likely to occur. First of all, tonight, maybe a little uptick in some cloud cover, so that tomorrow morning, 7 a.m., it's mostly cloudy, and there could be some patchy fog around. 10 o'clock, nothing going on, except for that temperature drop. Sometimes we call this a backdoor or pneumonia front, because it's coming in from the northeast. 4 o'clock, our model's got nothing in Chicagoland. Still quiet. All right, 7 o'clock, nothing much happening. But wait, what was that? And actually, let me back this up here a little bit. I'm going to hop out of this because I want to show you, maybe I can freeze that on that frame. So bear with me here. We're going to go here and do a little something. We're going to do a little something. All right, let's watch this here. What time was that thunderstorm blasting through the area? All right, take a look there, 9 o'clock. You've got some scattered thunderstorms city and north. And then a really nasty one there showing up near the Kankakee River. That scoots out of the area, and then overnight into Wednesday morning, another area of thunderstorms. I'm going to rack this back and forth, during the wee hours before the sun comes up and it's pouring, maybe some embedded thunder and lightning. This would be a time where severe weather is less likely. I mean, there might be some 40 to 50 mile an hour winds, maybe some small hail with that. But the prime time, I think, for tomorrow is going to be probably after 6 o'clock, moving into mainly, I still think, southern portions of Chicagoland are more favored or in a less beneficial position to get the strongest thunderstorms. All right, so that's the timing there of the storms. Now, what about the rest of the forecast here? Let's get you to what's going on here for tonight, which is kind of a fairly quiet affair other than the possibility of patchy fog. I'm going to call it partly cloudy. It may go partly to mostly cloudy. Low temperatures around 52, but I wouldn't be surprised if some of you maybe, in Winthrop Harbor, Zion, Gurnee even, you may be dipping down in the mid-40s by daybreak tomorrow as that front slides down the lake. So that's tonight. No thunderstorms tonight, very quiet. Tomorrow, we start out dry. I know I've got a graphic here that's got all kinds of stuff that's going on, thunderstorms, rain is coming down. Majority of daylight hours, in fact, maybe entirety of daylight hours, probably going to miss out on much of the way of thunderstorms. I mean, there may be something flaring up well south. That's where it will start. And I'm putting 58 up there for the high, more or less to reflect the spread across the area. I've got 45 north and 72 degrees south there, that big temperature spread. But tomorrow, late afternoon and at night, you need to be weather ready. I've mentioned this before on my Studio C reports. I am not a fan of the term weather aware. Just because you know something, oh yeah, I know there's a tornado coming down the street. I'm aware of it. Does that mean the same thing as being weather ready? I don't think so. If you're weather ready, you and your family know what to do in case any kind of threatening weather strikes. That's what being weather ready means to me, and that's why I stress that in my forecast. Weather aware means bupkis. Weather ready actually speaks to what you and your family should be when we have a potential storm situation like the one that we have tomorrow. All right, now let's go to the 7-day forecast because it doesn't have any 70s in it, although some of you far south may get there tomorrow. On Wednesday, that's not all rain coming out of that cloud, even though the majority of it will. There could be some wet snowflakes at the tail end of this thing as colder air filters in. Remember I showed you those 30s? But I think its majority of the day is just some rain, especially early on. And I haven't really addressed this, but there is the possibility of flooding downpours. The atmosphere is going to be loaded with moisture, which could lead to some very efficient rainfall rates, particularly where these thunderstorms might be training over the same area repeatedly. So that is another concern on top of everything else, the heavy rainfall. Thursday, day to relax. It'll be chilly, but remember, mid-40s normal temperature. So what do we have there? Kind of a normal March day with some sunshine. Not bad. Next storm system comes through Thursday night into Friday. That one's going to be gusty. Lots of wind, not severe thunderstorm winds, but there will likely be some rain, probably holding off until after midnight Thursday, going into Friday morning. The rest of Friday, partly cloudy, upper 40s to around 50 degrees. Then things take a turn for the cooler. On Saturday and Sunday, what do we have? We've got St. Patrick's Day parades downtown on Saturday. Okay, I think daylight hours Saturday are dry. So I think the weather's going to be just, chilly. Temperatures probably in the mid to upper 30s during the parade, but it will not be precipitating. And folks get enough antifreeze in there, you're going to be okay. High of 48 degrees. Rain moves into the area Saturday night into early Sunday. And then Sunday, there can be a mix with some wet snow in the afternoon and in the evening. Temperatures will be falling. So, south side Irish, not as good. Why does it always seem to hit the south side? But it's going to be, I think, wet again for you and chilly and breezy. And then, behind that dog, look at Monday. High temperature, 32 degrees. Yes, that is going to be a shot of legitimately cold air coming in here as we close out the weekend and go into next week. So let's recap here. Let's go to the weather headlines and kind of refresh for those of you who may just be tuning in. Here's the deal with tomorrow's storms. Severe storms with large hail, damaging winds, and tornadoes are possible. Doesn't mean that everybody's going to get one, okay? But I think there will be scattered severe thunderstorms in Chicagoland. To me, the highest tornado threat is going to be I-80 and south, and it may be even closer to Highway 24, which is out of Chicagoland. But the highest tornado threat, that is not saying the only tornado threat. I'm simply saying the highest tornado threat is south. Timing, late afternoon into the night. Even though our model really didn't bring in anything until after dark, something could pop 5, 6 o'clock, especially in some southern portions of Chicagoland. So that's an important time to be weather ready. Again, I'm stressing that as being the key word there. Let's look again at those current temperatures out there. It's a beautiful evening. 61 at the lakefront in Gary, Joliet. This is right now. 65, 64 at Woodstock, 57 at Valparaiso in Michigan City. Those are our cold spots. And we continue to have some pretty, stout winds coming out of the south-southwest. 23-mile-an-hour gusts currently at Midway, and we have a 21 mph at O'Hare and Gary. Lesser winds, and when those winds slacken a little bit tonight, there may be some fog. Let me check the visibility right now. I don't think that there's any real fog out there, but let me cue up the visibility map. Let's look at that. Yeah, now 10 miles visibility means there's no obstruction. Merrillville and Rensselaer and DeKalb with 6.1. I'm chalking that up to just kind of a bogus report there. So refreshing this. Widespread severe weather tomorrow. Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Arkansas, Missouri, Illinois, parts of Iowa, Indiana, western Iowa in particular, and folks in southwest Michigan are probably looking at that map and they're going, oh, not again, not again. And hopefully nobody is going to be dealing with a, destructive and deadly tornado like they did last week in Union City. But in the Chicago area, here's what you've got. Enhanced risk, level 3 out of 5 for severe thunderstorms, roughly along Eisenhower and Reagan expressways. North of that, it's a slightly lower slight risk, but everywhere in Chicagoland has a risk of severe thunderstorms tomorrow. So please be weather ready. And the prime time, I think, is still going to be when it's dark, when it is dark. And that's also just like the worst time because then you can't see anything. Very, very difficult to kind of keep track of the weather when you can't see. It's dark if you're driving around. Make sure you have the Fox 32 weather app going on your smartphones. Make sure you're watching us here online and on air. We'll be back with